One of the things that I said that I do want to get an open conversation around is, how does your lived experience intelligence inform how you show up as a leader? I'll give you an example of how this shows up in my world. Because of my lived experiences, I'm very attuned and really hyper aware of whose voice isn't getting heard, right? Especially when we're at meetings and lots of people are able to lean into the conversation. I'm very attuned and very hypersensitive to it. And it's not only from a race and gender perspective, which is a lot of what informs my lived experience intelligence, that I identify as female and my race as Black, right? But it's also from an introversion, extroversion standpoint as well, too. Some people take more time to process their thoughts first before they speak. And some people are processing their thoughts as they're speaking. And because I'm so aware of, just the different ways that people can show up, because I can show up differently sometimes, those lived experiences often is what drives me to saying, hey, Janice, do you have something that you'd like to add? Or, hey, Tim, it looks like you were about to say something. Where when you're sitting in meetings, just because of your own lived experiences, you're like, yep, I'm very aware of who's getting a chance to speak and who's not. There is a space for navigating our environments. And navigate was one of the key words as well, too. And you're saying that a big part of what informs your leadership is what you tap into internally. Now, some people, as they're tapping into something internally, it could be exactly what you're talking about as well, too. The wisdom within the universe, and all of that beautiful stuff, and doing the work for healing, too. And I also believe that this idea of all that you've been exposed to as well, right, can also help to inform your leadership as well, too. And so, do you think that, yes, there is a space for the internal, like what's happening within us, but do you also think that there's a space where how you identify has created a level of what you're exposed to and maybe what you're not exposed to that also informs how you lead? How do you connect that to your lived experiences? What about your lived experiences makes you more hyper aware of giving different ways for people to communicate verbally and non-verbally? I always want people to feel like there's a safe environment to be able to say your truth. And sometimes the best way to create that safe environment is what you were talking about, like being able to use an anonymous feature so people can share their feedback. That's good. Something that I used to do when I was working in corporate America was every so often, maybe a couple of times a year, I wanted to hear from the team on what their experience was like working under my supervision. It is tough to get feedback from people, but that's the only way that I could make sure that the experience that I thought I was delivering really aligned to what they were truly experiencing as well, too. And so even with that, I had somebody else manage the whole process of getting feedback from the team. And they were the only ones that knew. Having a space where people can show up as who they are and say what they need to say in the way that they can say it, right? Because, not everyone, especially when it comes to matters that trigger us or make us deeply emotional, not everyone still has the ability to articulate their feedback as well. But regardless of how someone shows up, just making sure that they have the space to share the feedback in a way that it can be heard so that we can process and improve is so important. I always enjoy talking about lived experiences and how those lived experiences inform all that we do. So we're just at the beginning of this, right? And when I say the beginning, I mean, on one end, there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that individuals, that we as an individual understand the level of value we already possess just through our lived experiences, how it is an intelligence, and being able to articulate that intelligence into what makes you more competitive for some of these open opportunities. And then the other work is on the other end when we're talking to employers, helping them to understand that the reason diversity or increasing diversity, it has so many statistics and data showing how valuable it is, how it makes an organization more competitive globally and things like that, that the reason it works is because the it factor is it's our lived experiences. And there's so much latent lived experience intelligence within organizations today that if we can continue getting the word out about how powerful this is, and having conversations about what it looks like and how to leverage it, it's going to make things even more powerful. If you're interested in additional tools on increasing diversity, we do have a newsletter on LinkedIn called Increase Diversity, and you can find that link on my LinkedIn page, or you can join our mailing list because we have other things out there as well too that can support you, like our Increased Diversity Toolbox on our website. So if you haven't downloaded the report, you can find that at livedexperienceintelligence.com. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation today, and we'll see you all next week